Today is a special day. A day to honor the women who have molded us, nurtured us, and walked us through life. Today we say thank you to every mom. Moms with children running through the house. And moms whose babies are out on their own. Moms who are doing this all by themselves. And moms who loved a child who needed a home. Moms who have suffered an unimaginable loss. And moms whose children have children themselves. For all the times your love gave us strength, and the moments your wisdom gave us understanding. For the way you've lived your life, so we could see Jesus through you. For each moment, we say thank you. Whether today is a day of celebration, reflection, or heartache, know that you are loved. Happy Mother's Day.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Otis Hall. Happy Mother's Day to all of you who are out there, and welcome to week 3 of our Loaded Questions series. Each week, we're tackling questions that were submitted by some of you. They've been amazing questions, challenging for us to answer in the time of sermon. So we added a Q&A after every service. There'll be one after. So if there are questions that come up in your mind or things that haven't been answered during the sermons, please stick around after the service and ask those things. But let's get to the question for today. Will faith fix mental health? That's a big one. That's an immense question. And we chose to do it on this very special Sunday. You know, it's Mother's Day and mental health and missions all in one day. I don't know what we were thinking when we were in the planning room that day and decided that we put all those on the same day and give the mic to somebody with anxiety. It was such a good choice. But as someone, I think, who's dealt with anxiety most of their adult life and didn't have a name for it, didn't know what it was until recently, I can tell you that I was anxious then about preaching on Mother's Day, on mental health, including a missions emphasis in a way that doesn't cause anxiety for me or for you, that's already failed, isn't depressing and is full of hope. And I want you to know that while I look all put together and ready to go and super calm, this is probably more what I feel like today. But I have something that helps me get through that. And it's something that I want all of us to know about and have. It's what we live into in our series thesis all throughout. It's this, that faith doesn't hide from questions, fear does. And so knowing that, let's dive into this question. Will faith fix mental health? That's a significant question, and it's not just significant because it's trending on socials every week. It's because it's a reflection of an entire generation's heart, a generation that's exhausted and anxious and comparing and numbing and asking questions like, where is the peace? Where can I find balance in my mental health? It's also significant because people who have mental health challenges, they often suffer in silence. They struggle in secret, feeling shame and confusion about what's going on with them and whether they want help, whether they can find help, what God even thinks about what it is that's going on in their bodies. And so I'm so honored today to stand here, not just because it's Mother's Day, not just because it's one of our Love is the Agenda weekends, because we get to talk about something that's really important to me, and that's mental health. If you're new or newer here and you are unfamiliar with this phrase, love is the agenda, it's something that we say around here. It's more, though, for us than just a catchphrase. It's a way of life here at Autumn Ridge. A few times a year, we take a weekend to focus on how we intentionally love people in our communities through action. Whether that's caring for vulnerable children, whether that's meeting the needs in our community, whether that's partnering globally, what you should know about us is that we don't just talk about love. We live it out. And that's why today's message fits so perfectly. Because mental health isn't a side issue. It's a global issue. It affects millions upon millions of people in our country and millions upon millions of people across the globe. It affects things even close to us. It affects our families, our friendships, our partners, and even our own faith. I told you that for me it's a struggle, and that's why I know how important it is that we bring this conversation into the church and that the church be equipped to walk with people who are experiencing these challenges. And that's because of this. That's because faith doesn't ignore our struggles. It carries us through them. And so I'm not just excited to talk about this. I'm hopeful because I believe that this conversation could be a turning point for someone. And if that's you, if you're here today and you struggle with mental health challenges, or if you're a mother of a child or a teenager that's struggling with anxiety, depression, or despair, if you're a son or a daughter who's dealt with a parent who's dealt with these things, or a mother who's looking at their grown children wondering what they're going to do, this is what I want you to hear. That you are not alone, that you're loved, that you're seen, that you're in the right place today. That this family of believers is not a place where you have to hide any of those things, that you can be transparent and walk through them with the people who belong in this place into God's kingdom. Know that today. But let's get to the assignment at hand. A hopeful message about mental health. We're going to hope for anxiety and hope for depression and hope for despair. Thank you for laughing. I worked really hard on that joke. Thank you so much for laughing at that. Well, if you're hoping for those things, if you're in the audience and you're actually hoping for those things, you and I need to have a serious conversation after service is over. But let me give you a quick roadmap of how I might have gotten there and how you might get there. First, I would deny all aspects of your humanity. Who, after all, needs sleep or exercise or nutrition? When we say that, we mean vegetables, and no one needs those things. So instead, just exhaust yourself and soften your brain and soften your body and fill yourself full of sugar. It's a great life. Then I would get you to believe that life and happiness is found in material things, money and success and aesthetics and getting more likes on social media, and more stuff. Because the truth is, if you're not happy, it's because you haven't bought the right thing yet, or you haven't bought enough of them. Let me tell you how that works for me. It's called heated vests. People ask me all the time, how many of those things do you need? It's 3. You need at least 3. That's how many you need. You need at least 3 of them. And then I would get you to compare your messy insides to everybody else's airbrushed, perfect outside. Preferably, I would deliver pictures and videos to you that you could take into your house and compare yourself to and see that those two things are not the same. And then I would constantly bombard you with information and bad news, and ideally I would push it straight to your phone so that you could have it all the time and you could at any point know that that bad thing that happened to those people could happen to you at any moment. And I would even make it so that you could get it while you're sitting here in church. And then I would run your life. I would run your life at a breakneck speed that you wouldn't have time to breathe or stop or do anything, but you would feel like you have to do it because everybody else seems to be running their life at breakneck speed with perfect kids and perfect homes and clean in ways that you can't even imagine, but they pull it off. Look at social media. And of course, then I would get you to isolate yourself so much that your barista at your local coffee shop is more emotionally involved in your life than your friends. If you do those things, if you do those things like I did those things, congratulations, you've achieved premium anxiety. I can attest that it works 100% of the time. So is it any wonder that we live in the most anxious, depressed, despair-filled generation of all time? We're literally living out the prescription for these things. And the truth is, the statistics back it up. 60% of college students meet the criteria for mental health conditions. 84% of Gen Z report burnout. Suicide amongst 10 to 24-year-olds increased 62% between 2007 and 2021. In the age range of 8 to 10, that increased almost 10% in the same time frame. Depression, it rose in every demographic in America over the last decade. Anxiety disorders affect 40 million U.S. adults. That's just anxiety issues, and those are only the ones who have been diagnosed. When you add in all of the other mental health stressors, that number goes through the roof. But that number alone, that's 19% of our country. So this isn't a little question. And so we should be really honest about this question and the answer to it. When we ask, will faith fix mental health? I wish I could tell you yes. I wish that I could tell you that giving your life to Jesus would fix it just like that. But that hasn't been true for me, and that hasn't been true for some of the most faithful people that I know. So maybe there's a better question for us to ask. Maybe the question should be this: can faith help my mental health? And the answer to that is yes. Yes, it can. It is a resounding yes. It may not erase it. It may not take it away, but it can hold you through it. It can shape how you walk while you're in it. It can change how you come out the other side of whatever episode that you are in. And that's why today I think we need 1 Peter chapter 5. And so today we're going to be in 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 5 through 11, and you can start turning there. And while you're turning there, I want to give you some context about what's going on as we prepare to dive into the text today. Peter is writing to Christians who are suffering and uncertain, and they are afraid. They've left their old lives behind. They don't feel like they fit in anywhere. They're being persecuted and starting to wonder things like this: why is this happening to me? What didn't I do right? Does this mean God doesn't love me? And to that, Peter writes into their life, and he says this: all of you, clothe yourselves with humility towards one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxieties on him, because he cares for you. Be alert and sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him. Stand firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering. And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. To him be the power forever and ever. Amen. I can't tell you how much these verses have changed my life over the last 4 years, how much they've meant to me over the last years of my life. I wish that we had time to just pause here and sit in the depth of what it is that Peter is saying in this passage, because Peter is giving us a multi-layered pastoral word to deeply hurting people and to us. He starts with a call to humility, not because he wants to belittle people, but because he knows that humility is the gateway to help. Pride keeps us stuck. Pride says, I've got this. Humility says, I need help. And when we're willing to say that, that's when we become open to God's care. There's so many things that I love about this passage that I wish we had time to unpack today. And one of my favorites is this phrase that Peter uses, and he says, under God's mighty hand. That would have been loaded with meaning for Peter's audience. You see, it's a reference all the way back to the Exodus, where God's mighty hand delivered his people from slavery. It's a reminder that God is not distant, that he is powerful, and he acts in history to rescue. So Peter is telling them and us, when you feel overwhelmed, when your mental health is fragile, humble yourself under the same mighty hand, because God is not absent, and he is able. And then he says what I needed to hear, and maybe what some of you needed to hear today: cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for us. That's not a shame statement. That's not a get it together statement. That's an invitation. The God who delivered people from Pharaoh's grip cares about your internal battles. The God who split the Red Sea is also near to the brokenhearted, and he wants us to know that God wants your burdens, not just your best behavior. It's worth noting when we read these words like anxiety and cares and despair in the Bible, and when Peter is talking about them, he's not pulling from the clinical language that we might use today. He didn't have access to the DSM-5, the diagnostic manual used by healthcare professionals to define disorders like generalized anxiety and despair and depression. Instead, he's speaking to a kind of internal distress, a heaviness of the soul. His audience would have understood that through their experiences, through the experience of people who came in the past. And I assume that some of you feel the same way. You understand what he's talking about. In the biblical world, these concerns weren't measured by checklists or scales. They were felt and they were lived. And that doesn't make them any less real. It actually makes Peter's words even more remarkable because he doesn't minimize those feelings. He names them, and he offers us a path forward. He wants us to know that faith doesn't pretend that we aren't struggling. It gives us the way to deal with what we're carrying emotionally and mentally and spiritually. It gives us a way to work towards actual mental health. Peter has a way for us to do that. He has an answer to our question, and his answer has a rhythm to it. Peter's words are these: be humble, cast your anxiety, and be courageous. He tells them to be humble and submit, even when it's hard. But he knows, even as he tells them that, he knows that humility brings uncertainty, and with uncertainty comes anxiety. And if you don't understand that, let me explain it in another way. Psychologists say that humans have 3 core psychological needs. And those needs are what we have to feel stable and emotionally healthy. And they're these things. They're agency, the sense that I have control over my choices and environment. And when you don't have that, you feel powerless. It's bonding, the need to feel connected and known and loved by others. Without that, you might be able to guess that you feel isolated. And then there's certainty. And that's the sense that life is somewhat predictable and consistent. And without that, you feel anxious and unsettled. But what we need to understand, what we need to turn our thinking to, is that these emotional signals aren't signs that something is wrong with you. They're signs that something is missing from your life. And understanding this helps us respond to our emotions with compassion, not shame. We need to understand what happens when people are missing these things. And so when there's no agency, people often respond in anger. And you may know people like that in your life that are just angry about something and you don't have any idea why. Maybe they're missing this part of what they need to feel stable. When there's no bonding and you feel isolated, when your kids come home from school and they're sad and profoundly sad and you don't know why, it may be because they didn't connect with the teacher or the kids or the students in their class and they're feeling alone. When there's no certainty, there's anxiety because you don't know what's next. You have no way of being able to predict what's going to be the next thing that happens in your life. But again, none of those things are signs that something is wrong with you. We have to change the way we think about those. And Peter does a good thing to help us move towards that because he doesn't shame them for feeling anxious. He doesn't say pray it away. He doesn't say it's all in your head. He doesn't say just stop worrying about it or pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Instead, he says cast your fears and anxiety on Jesus. That word cast, it's only used twice in the entire Bible. It's used here, and it's used in Luke chapter 19 at the triumphal entry of Jesus. And it describes when the disciples threw their cloaks on the donkey that Jesus rode into Jerusalem. It's meant to give you the image of the fact that they literally took something off of themselves that was weighing them down. They gave it to Jesus and he rode off with it. But what do we tend to do with our issues and our problems and the things that weigh us down? We actually tend to do the opposite with them. We harbor our issues. We carry them around. We keep them close to us like they're a badge of honor. But Peter would ask us again to do something radically different, to cast those cares on Jesus. He would say, don't harbor it. Don't carry it. Just cast it. And so I can't say more than enough. I can't repeat it enough times. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. That's not pull yourself together. That's not pretend you're fine. That's do this because the God of the universe cares for us. All this talk about casting has me thinking about this thing that I'm thinking about being my new hobby. I want to take up fishing. I haven't bought a single rod. I haven't bought a single reel. I haven't bought a single lure. I haven't done any of that. I'm just reading and doing research because, I told you I have anxiety and I want to be prepared so I don't look stupid when I go and do this for the first time. But what I've been reading about later is casting. And maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but the whole purpose of casting is to get the line as far away from you as possible, because if you cast at your feet, you won't catch anything. Casting anxiety is the same. You get it out of you, you give it to God. But for some of us, like me, it isn't just a one-time cast and the problem is gone. It's more like fly fishing, where you cast and reel and cast and reel and cast again. And maybe you don't get how that works. So let me give you an example about how my anxiety works for me. Imagine your mind is like a house, and inside this house there's a whole bunch of smoke detectors. And they're there to warn you when there's danger, when something is burning. And that's what anxiety is meant to do. It's a signal. It's not the fire itself. But for some of us, those alarms are just a little bit too sensitive. It goes off when somebody burns toast or when somebody takes too hot of a shower. It blares and beeps in the middle of the night when nothing is wrong. And sometimes you're so tired, you can't figure out where the stupid beeping is coming from, so you just want to rip them all out of the wall. I want to rip it all out of me. That's what I want to do. That's me. That's how I've been living for the last few years. It shows up everywhere. Like recently, I was at a coffee shop with a friend of mine. It's a coffee shop that I go to often, and mid-conversation, they stopped and they said, "Hey, are you okay? You seem really distracted today." It was really a really nice way for them to say, "Hey, you aren't paying attention to me." And so I apologized, and I explained. And here's what I told him. If you were to look over your right shoulder, you would see a senior lady who seems to be having trouble eating. And her coffee is about to spill, and I'm preparing to either go clean her coffee up or give her the Heimlich maneuver, whichever comes first. Over your right shoulder, there's a small child who just ran into the greenhouse without their parents, and I don't know where their parents are, and this 5 or 6-year-old has run out into a place that I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm wondering where their parents are. And then right here is where the regular John, who's writing a novel, would normally sit, and he's normally here by now, but he's not here. And I don't know where he is, but I remember the last time I saw him, he didn't look good, so I'm wondering what's going on with him. And the barista, Peter, behind the bar, doesn't look good. He looks stressed. And did something happen in the back? Is there something wrong with the coffee beans that I'm actually drinking, or is there something that he didn't do well on his exam? The owners are here, but she doesn't seem like she's in her normal, usual happy place, and I wonder if business is going well, or if something's going wrong, or if something else is stressing her out. And I took a breath in that moment, not to stop, but when I did, he looked at me and he asked me this question: why in God's name are you worried about all of those things? You don't have to worry about any of those things. And my answer might surprise some of you, but I imagine that for some of you, this is your answer too. I don't know how to be any other way. I'm built this way. And it has its positives and its negatives. It helps me in my job. It helps me see the needs in the community, sometimes before other people. It helps me push to find help for those in need, those without a voice, those that are unseen. But it also has a dark side. And sometimes it has a really dark side. Some of you know that I've been on a health journey this year to lose weight. And I've told you that I wanted to get healthy for my family. I wanted to live longer. I wanted to keep up with my 8-year-old, the one that God gave me and I blame him for. But there is another reason about that too. Over the time that I've preached here, every time I've walked on this stage, every time I came up those steps and was a little bit winded, I wondered if you could hear the sermon, or could you only see my weight? Could you see how uncomfortable I was in my clothes? Could you see how uneasy it was for me to breathe through the sermon that I was going on? I'd catch a glimpse of myself on the camera like that, and then my anxiety would hijack my mind, and I'd lose my place in the message. I felt like maybe I wasn't a fit, literally, to preach in this place. But that anxiety didn't just happen when it was on stage. It would also happen in the lobby, because after we preach, we normally go to the lobby and we stand there and we wait for people to come and talk to us. And my anxiety would go, who's going to come and talk to me? Maybe no one's going to say anything. They didn't learn anything from the message. Maybe they just don't want to be around me because they know that I look uncomfortable in my clothes. I don't really know what I would say if they were doing it, and I look uncomfortable anyway. Oh, I can't breathe. And so we set out to fix it. Fixing it looks like a lot of things. It means getting coaches to help you stand on this stage and preach better. It means, for losing weight, going to the gym. I hate the gym. But I would schedule time. My assistant would schedule time during the day. I would tell my wife that I'm going to the gym, and I would go to the gym, and I would walk 1 lap or 2 laps, and I would sit on a machine or 2, and then I would get up and I would leave, because that same track that's playing in my head, that's playing on this stage, played out in the gym. And I'd have to get up and I'd have to walk out, and I'd go sit in my car until it was time to go home, because I couldn't take the idea that someone might see me in the gym and judge what I could lift or not lift, or how far I could run or not run. Were people in the gym judging me? Probably not. But that alarm in my head, that alarm's always blaring. That's what anxiety is for me. It's always on, it's always draining, and I want so badly just to rip it out of me. I just want to be normal. And you see, there it is. There's that stigma. I am normal. I can't say that enough. I am normal. If this is you, you are normal. But here's the truth in that. I still just wish that somebody would rip it out of me. I still wish it would be removed from me. I still pray that it will go away every day. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith doesn't do that, because I actually need it. Because it helps me learn to discern things about life. Do you know what faith does? Faith helps me ask this question: is this a real fire, or is it just steam from the shower? The story I was telling myself about myself, it wasn't good, but the truth is amazing. Do you know what the truth is? I'm a child of God, and he loved me enough to die for my sins. And he died for my sins even though I have anxiety. He died for your sins even though you might have anxiety, depression, burnout, despair, whatever it is. He died for you too. Amen. And that brings me back to Peter's rhythm. Be humble, cast your anxiety, and be courageous. So what does it look like practically? How do we cast our cares? Let's use Peter's own language. Let's cast. And this is something that someone shared with me, and I want to share it with you, and it changed the way that I deal with things that are happening in my daily life. See, call it what it is. Let's name it. Anxiety, depression, sadness, fear, burnout. Don't dance around it. Don't disguise it as something else, because the longer we leave it unnamed, the longer it gets to control us. But once we name it, it starts to lose power, and we can say, hey, whoa, that's just anxiety talking. That's not truth. That's just despair talking. That's not truth. That's just depression talking. That's not truth. We have to name it. And then A, accept help. God created us to be in community. You were never meant to do this alone, even if it feels like that would be easier. Maybe you need a friend. Maybe you need someone to sit at a coffee shop with you, to pray with you and talk with you about what's going on in your head, what's going on in your heart. Maybe you need a trained counselor. Maybe you need something more than that. Maybe you need medical help, and it's okay. All of that is okay. Because, hey, did you know that you can pray and take Zoloft and be fully devoted to Jesus all at the same time? Did you know that you can pray and take Zoloft and be fully devoted to Jesus at the same time? If it's medication that you need, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something that God provided, something that God helped us develop so that you can be helped and be all that He wants you to be. We need to stop thinking about this as something bad. We need to turn the way we think and understand that you can follow Jesus and still need a community of people to hold you up. That you can still follow Jesus and take the medications that you need. But maybe it's not either one of those. Maybe you have hurts or habits or hangups. Maybe there are relational patterns in your life that are disrupting things. Maybe you need this. Maybe you need Celebrate Recovery, where they deal with the hurts and the habits and the hangups of life. It happens right here on Friday night at 6:30. It's open to everyone. But we have to get to the point where we are not above asking for help, because that's what humility does. S is for submit. Submit to truth, not just your feelings. Your feelings are real, but they aren't always right. So we submit our thoughts and emotions to the truth of God's love. We obey even when it's hard. We trust God even when we are afraid, because the truth is fear doesn't ever get you where you want to go. I know for me that sometimes I wish I could live in the world where I could be emotional or logical and I could choose. And the people in this room who know me, they know which one would win. It's logic, because emotions are hard. But if we have faith in Jesus, if we ground ourselves not in just how we feel, but in how we know, and what we know is true, which is that God is with us and God is for us and that God cares. When we do that, fear can never drive us, but we will let God drive us where He needs us to go. T, trust God with the outcome. This is the hardest part, but it's also the most freeing. Most of our anxiety lives in the space of things that we can't control. What we have to understand is that we can't manipulate the outcome of everything, but what we can do, we can choose to trust the one who owns it all. He holds it all. So why wouldn't we give it to Him? Peter says, cast our anxieties on Him because He cares for us. That's the kind of God that we trust. That's the kind of God that we serve. So be humble. Cast your anxieties and be courageous. What's left is this be courageous part. And so we need to understand what Peter means by be courageous. Courage in this context isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to stand firm even while afraid. And just in the next verse, Peter gives this strong warning. He says this, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. That's an intense statement, but it's important. It was important to Peter because Peter knew fear. He knew what it was like and how easy it is to be overwhelmed by it. You can read about that in the way that he reacted in his life when he was walking with Jesus. The image of the roaring lion isn't just about danger. It's about intimidation because I don't know if you know, but a lion roars to paralyze its prey before it even attacks. And anxiety does the same. Depression does the same. Despair does the same. Burnout does the same. You can put whatever mental health challenge you have in it. They all do the same. They make us feel like we don't know what's going to happen. They paralyze us. They roar in our mind telling us everything is falling apart, that we're going to be isolated, that no one's going to understand. And yet what does Peter do? Peter calls us to resist, to be alert, to be clear-headed. Even in the silence like we sang about today, we need to get to the point where we understand that Jesus is still working in me and in you and in others so that we can stand firm in our faith, not because we are strong, because God is. And then Peter goes on in verse 9 and he tells us what we all need to understand. He tells us this: the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of suffering. It's so important for us to understand when we are in this place, because what he's telling us is that you are not alone. You are not the only one. You see, being courageous, it means refusing to give up even when your feelings tell you that it's over. It means stepping back into community when you feel tempted to isolate. It means continuing to pray and serve and show up and even trust when that emotional fog that we understand hasn't lifted yet. It means acknowledging the fear, but choosing faith anyway. Peter is calling them and us not to denial, but to daily resilience. He's calling us to the courage to keep walking, keep obeying, to keep believing that God will restore, strengthen, and steady us in due time. That's why I think we need 1 Peter chapter 5 to answer our question. Can faith help my mental health? See, Peter wants us to understand that with faith, no matter what you're struggling with, the answer is always this: be humble. Cast your anxieties and all the things that go with that, whether that's counseling or medication or companionship or whatever it is. Cast your anxiety and be courageous. Can I tell you one more story? It's a story to help us understand the connection to all this and our church's missional understanding that love is the agenda. Let me tell you about a friend of mine named Mia. When I knew Mia, she was 15. Her anxiety was flaring and it turned into depression. She started withdrawing and skipping school and eating less and sleeping more. Her parents were confused and scared. But one of our small group leaders decided that they were going to lean in. They didn't have any degrees. They didn't have any training. All they had was love for the children. And they showed up. And they saw her. And they didn't try to fix her. They just listened. They spoke life over her when she couldn't see it for herself. And they helped her grow grit, that thing that we all want our kids to do, that toughness that they need to walk through life. They walked alongside her as she got the help that she needed. And over time, Mia began to breathe again. Mia came back to life again. And today, if Mia were to walk on this stage, she would tell you that she's leading a group of middle school girls, sharing with them what somebody had done for her. That's what casting looks like. To not carry it alone looks like. To give our burdens to God and let others walk with us. That's what it looks like when the church decides that love is not a motto, it's a mission. Stories like Mia remind us that love in action is powerful, and it doesn't require a degree. It just requires us to show up. But imagine what could happen if more of us were equipped with the tools to love intentionally, connect deeply, and walk with others in their deepest valleys. So here's what I want us to do today. Normally at Love's Agenda, there are boxes in the lobbies or stores in the lobbies, ways that you could tangibly affect change in our community. But today, instead, we're going to get equipped. Before you leave, before the question and answer or after the question and answer, go to autumnridge.church and sign up for any of the things that you heard Pastor Jody talk about today. Come to our scene workshop next Saturday right in this room at 10 a.m. We can't be equipped enough to help families and kids deal with what's going on in their lives. And they're going to teach these things, those things that helped Mia. But if you want more and you need more, you can also register one of our June classes, Parenting with Mental Health in Mind or Untangling Your Emotions, because here at Autumn Ridge, love is the agenda. It's not just a phrase that we say, it's a rhythm of how we live our life as a church. Our only agenda is that we don't just talk about love, it's that we live it out every day in every way in our community. And that includes love for those struggling with mental health like me and maybe like you. Will you pray with me? God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the gift that you have given us in your love and your promises that we hold as true. God, we thank you for the foundation that we can stand on, that you are with us and that you are for us and that you care for us. God, let us be courageous. Let us cast our anxieties on you. God, help us to live our life in a way that honors you and shows you that we believe all the things that you say are true, and let us be the front lines. Let us be the first people that people who are suffering will step to because they see you in us. God, I look forward to all of the ways that we, these people in this room, these people who are online, will be the blessing for people who are struggling in this mental health challenge that is a pandemic on the world. And we do all these things simply because you did them for us. And it's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.